been doing for well over a decade, and just building that, businesses that I've been building, and I never wanted to lose. But unfortunately, I think when you do lose, you learn some of your biggest lessons, and I kind of...
And there's so much stuff that we have and that we keep to ourselves, and then there's stuff that we share. And
It all started in the most ordinary setting. A quiet room, no flashing paparazzi lights, no glittering crowns, no royal fanfare, just familiar faces. People who had known each other for years, gathered in a space where everyone could finally let their guard down. And there, sitting with her usual calm and grace, was Serena Williams. Serena, who didn't need to command attention because her presence alone was enough. The conversation began harmlessly. Light chatter, warm laughter, those easy topics friends circle around when no one's trying too hard. But then, like glass shattering in the middle of a song, a whisper cut through the air. And it wasn't about tennis, or Serena's career, or even about fashion. Number. This was something much smaller, yet infinitely more explosive.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry photographed on a sushi date in California. Last week, they celebrated their...
Someone leaned in, lowered their voice, and whispered about Meghan Markle's real age. At first, the words seemed to hang there, ignored. But when they reached Serena's ears, everything shifted. Her face froze. Her body leaned back ever so slightly, as if her instincts had detected something off. Then came the question. Quiet, but so heavy it sucked the air out of the room. How did she have kids? It wasn't malicious. It wasn't meant to wound. It was genuine confusion, disbelief even. And coming from Serena, someone known for discipline, strength, and grace, it couldn't be brushed aside as mere gossip. It hit the table like a thunderclap. Suddenly, the easy laughter was gone. Smiles evaporated. That picture-perfect Meghan Markle story, it no longer looked so perfect.
And both of you start twerking, because in her mind, she was thinking, I'm going to release this later in a Netflix doc or release.
And here's the thing. You have to ask yourself this. What could possibly make Serena Williams, a woman who has known Meghan for years, stop cold and question something so fundamental? What detail had she noticed that the rest of us missed? Because once Serena froze, there was no going back. If you're curious about how the pieces of Meghan's story start falling apart, stay right here, because once I walk you through what came next, you'll never look at this fairy tale the same way again. Now, let's rewind. Let's trace the cracks all the way back to the beginning to see where the story starts unraveling. According to Meghan's official biography, she was born in August 1981, Northwestern University class of 2003, graduating at the tidy age of 22. On paper, it's a flawless timeline, neat, convenient, and easily packaged for the public. But neat stories, they don't always hold up in reality. Northwestern's yearbooks show Meghan smiling brightly in the back row of the university salsa club. Carefree. Just another student, right? But when people started digging into the records of those standing next to her, something peculiar jumped out.
Netflix documentary series of Harry and Meghan. After Meghan Markle carried her baby.
These weren't all 21 or 22-year-olds. Some were born in the early 1970s. Public records showed many had already finished high school way back in 1988 or 1989, almost 10 years before Meghan's supposed high school graduation in 1999. And they weren't just random acquaintances. Their names appeared again and again in alumni lists, group newsletters, club photos. This was Meghan's circle, so if Meghan was truly just 22 in 2003, why was she constantly surrounded by people almost a decade older?
You see me in hindsight, tangled up with you all.
That's when the cracks begin to show. When the official biography doesn't match the records, it stops being rumor. It becomes a question of facts. If Meghan was born earlier than claimed, then her entire story changes. It alters everything. Pregnancies, timelines, photographs. A small detail suddenly transforms into a bombshell. And Serena, she understood this immediately. Serena had known Meghan too long, too closely. When she heard that whisper about Meghan's true age, she did the math instantly. The numbers didn't work. Her question wasn't born out of cruelty, it was instinct, the same instinct that tells her when to swing on a match point.
Harry and Meghan did not lose their titles. When they stepped back from the royal family,
her disbelief wasn't some idle curiosity. It opened a door no one wanted to step through, because if Meghan's age was wrong, then so was everything else built on that foundation. And for the first time, someone close enough to know better dared to silently wonder if the story everyone had been sold was even true at all.
Markle has revealed the strict royal rule that she dreaded following. In a new interview, Meghan revealed that during
the silence in that room was suffocating. Serena's words hung in the air. How did she have kids? Heavy. Haunting, unanswerable, a question that didn't fade but lingered long after everyone left. Because soon after Meghan's pregnancy was announced, the world celebrated. Yet behind the glossy magazine covers, something strange began to unfold, literally.
Did you know Meghan's pregnancy might be a hoax? No wonder Elizabeth refused to hold Meghan's kids before she passed. They might not have been.
The cameras loved it. Glossy magazines splashed Meghan across their covers. Royal watchers fawned over her every appearance. But beneath those picture-perfect photos, something strange began happening. One week, her baby bump sat high and round, perfectly symmetrical. Just days later, it appeared smaller, lower, almost reshaped. It was like watching a costume change in real time, and these weren't fan snapshots taken on shaky phones. No, these were professional photographers capturing her every move, photos meant to live forever in royal archives, and yet the human eye doesn't lie. People noticed. The shapes didn't stay consistent, the shadows didn't line up, something felt off.
You really thought it was a spoof.
Meghan Markle's latest Instagram video to mark her daughter's 4th birthday has sparked.
Then came the clip, the moment you couldn't unsee. Meghan, radiant as always, smiling as she lowered herself into a chair, and just for a split second, her stomach seemed to fold in on itself, bend, collapse in a way that felt impossible. This wasn't lighting. This wasn't fabric. It was movement. Movement that didn't belong to someone carrying a child. The palace scrambled with explanations, camera angles, shadows, fabric tension. But no matter how many excuses they threw out, the footage was undeniable. Once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. What made it even stranger was Meghan's constant gesture. No matter where she was, no matter the outfit, her hands always circled back to her bump. Gently, carefully, deliberately, over and over, as though cradling it wasn't just habit, it was performance, almost like she needed to remind everyone that the bump was real, center stage, the star of every photo. That single clip became more than a curiosity. It was the first visible crack. And when you paired that with Serena's whispered question, how did she have kids? The entire narrative started to feel less like reality and more like a carefully choreographed act. Because sometimes, truth doesn't scream from headlines. Sometimes it's whispered by those standing just out of frame. The event coordinators, the assistants, the junior staff, the ones who see everything yet say nothing. And slowly, little by little, whispers began to surface. An event planner remembered seeing Meghan backstage late into her pregnancy. She moved easily, gracefully, as though nothing had changed. No stiffness, no waddling, no aching back, no careful sitting. She glided across the room when most expectant mothers in their 3rd trimester can barely stand without effort. Another insider quietly revealed they had never once seen the bump uncovered. Not in dressing rooms, not during private fittings, not in intimate behind-the-scenes spaces. Always fabric, always covered, always shielded. Even when she should have been in comfort, in privacy, the bump stayed out of sight. And these weren't random internet theories. These were first-hand observations from people who were there, people who had no reason to invent tales. Observations so consistent that even journalists, though cautious, couldn't ignore them entirely. Individually, you could dismiss these stories as quirks, as coincidences, but together they formed a pattern of control, a pregnancy presented with precision, a bump that seemed to be more stage prop than natural progression. And now the evidence was stacking up. Serena's disbelief, the shifting bump, the folding video, the staff whispers, all pointing in one unsettling direction. Things didn't add up. And then came the moment that left even medical professionals shaking their heads, because what happened next wasn't just strange. It was, by many accounts, almost impossible. Just days after giving birth, Meghan appeared before the cameras. Polished, radiant, her figure immaculate. She wore a fitted dress, not the loose, forgiving clothing new mothers usually cling to. She walked in high heels, not the flats most struggle to manage. Her steps were steady, confident. She moved with a grace that defied the very idea of postpartum recovery. Doctors watching from afar quietly murmured among themselves. Her recovery seemed unnaturally fast, they said. Even with the world's best care, recovery takes time. It's not optional, it's biology. But Meghan's appearance didn't look like recovery. It looked like a performance. Every detail, her posture, her timing, her outfit, the briefness of her appearance was deliberate, controlled, a message to the world. Everything is perfect, nothing to see here. And yet, for those connecting the dots, it wasn't reassurance. It was confirmation. Confirmation that something was being managed, shaped, presented. The cameras captured what seemed like the perfect moment. Meghan glowing, Harry smiling proudly, a newborn nestled between them. The kind of photograph that history books love to reproduce. But behind that polished snapshot, questions screamed louder than the applause. If this was real, why did everything feel so rehearsed? Why did even the most natural act, a mother holding her child, look staged? Because childbirth is messy, chaotic, exhausting. No woman escapes that reality, except apparently Meghan Markle. That's what made the whole thing so unnerving. Meghan's grand postpartum reveal didn't feel like real life, it felt like a presentation. And when you stack that moment against everything else, the questionable age, the changing bump, the folding stomach, the whispers from staff, it started forming a picture you just couldn't dismiss. Just could. Each piece on its own? Sure, you could wave it away, a lighting trick here, a memory lapse there, but together it became undeniable. A puzzle with too many missing pieces. And just when people began to look for answers, they ran into walls. Staff who might know more, silenced by confidentiality agreements, paperwork that should have been routine, birth certificates, medical records, locked behind palace privacy, hospital staff, bound by contracts that went far beyond standard discretion. Everything that should have been simple suddenly became nearly impossible to access. Every trail that could have led to clarity dead-ended in secrecy. And inside those palace walls, everyone knew the unspoken rules: stay silent or lose everything. Careers built over decades could crumble from a single conversation. Reputations polished for years could be destroyed overnight. It wasn't about direct threats. It was about the fear of consequences. In circles that elite, silence isn't just loyalty, it's survival. And the palace? They didn't deny anything, because denial acknowledges a question. Instead, they said nothing. Absolute silence, and that silence became the strongest weapon of all. The messaging was simple. Repeat the official story until it becomes the only one anyone remembers. And oh, how quickly the tide turned. Media outlets desperate for access stuck to the script. Royal stamps and official statements made the narrative legitimate. Anyone raising doubts was labeled fringe. The folding bump. The recovery that didn't add up. The whispers from insiders who swore they never saw what should have been visible. The age records that made the math collapse. Each piece alone might be dismissed, but when you stack them, they form a pattern too loud to ignore. Those 4 words connect everything. They cut through the polished images and official statements. They link the inconsistencies, the impossibilities, the whispers. And once you hear them, you can't stop thinking about them, because maybe the answer is hidden in medical files we'll never see. Maybe it's in memories sealed behind non-disclosure agreements. Maybe it's in truths too private or too explosive ever to reach the light. But until that answer comes, if it ever does, the question remains. Unanswered, unanswerable, hanging in the air like smoke. The whisper became a doubt. The doubt became a pattern. The pattern became a mystery. And at the center of it all stands Serena Williams. Her instinct sharper than anyone else's, asking the question that turned a fairy tale into a puzzle. How did she have kids? The world may never know, but some will always wonder. And if you've made it this far, you've seen the cracks, the inconsistencies the rest of the world was told to ignore. If this made you look twice at the story you thought you knew, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. Because this isn't the end of the story. The question still lingers. And maybe, just maybe, someone with the answers is watching right now.